For 2 years, I ran the Burton step-on snowboard bindings, and then last year I switched to the CLEW step-in snowboard bindings. So after running both for a long period of time, I wanted to compare the two, talk about the pros, the cons of each different binding, and break it down into several different categories so that if you're out there on the market right now looking to pick up one of these snowboard bindings, I can help make you the best decision depending on which binding is going to fit your needs or riding style. So the first category I wanted to cover is the cost. Now the Burtons are going to come in at $300, which is cheaper than the CLEW step-in bindings. However, you also have to buy a step-on specific boot, which is going to run you anywhere from $350 all the way up to $620. Now in contrast, the CLEW is going to cost $499. They will fit any snowboard boot, so most likely you're not going to have to buy a new snowboard boot if you are picking up a pair of the CLEWs. And then if you want to own multiple sets of bindings, that way you don't have to constantly switch your bindings from one snowboard to another, you can pick up additional base plates for $199, which is cheaper than having to buy, say multiple pairs of step-on bindings. I know me personally, I just like to have multiple sets of bindings if I can. That way I'm not constantly having to move my bindings back and forth. Now the next category I want to talk about is weight. Now obviously the Burton step-ons are going to be lighter because they don't have all the extra straps and hardware, things that are going to be on your traditional bindings. They're going to come in at 1.8 to 2 pounds depending on the size of Burton step-ons that you go with, versus the CLEW weigh 2.4 pounds, whereas a normal binding is going to sit somewhere between 2 and 2.2 pounds. So if you are going for just pure weight savings and want the lightest binding feel possible, yes, the Burton is going to be the lightest option, but the CLEW is right there comparable almost with a traditional regular binding. Now next, I did just want to touch on compatibility. Like I mentioned before, if you are picking up a pair of the Burton step-ons, you do have to buy a step-on specific boot, which is an additional cost, and typically if you're looking at getting step-ons, that means you're going to need both. Versus the CLEW, they will fit any boot on the market, so you're not going to have to buy anything extra. You can just take whatever boot you have, slip right in, and you're good to go. On that note, I wanted to talk about the ease of entry. With the Burton step-ons, I do feel like there is a little bit of a learning curve, and it's not really difficult. I do just recommend practicing at home before you get to the lift because there is a certain technique to get in and out of the binding. If you're stepping in, you want to line up your heel first, you're going to step down and rock your foot side to side. It is also nice to have no straps in your way, nothing extra you have to mess with, you just step on and go. Now with the CLEW, I feel like there is no learning curve. It's a really smooth and more natural motion. Like, I know there are people that can pull it off with the Burton step-ons. I was never able to, but with the CLEW, I'm able to step in coming right off the chair, so I don't even have to stop. You do have to put the straps on first, like if you were doing a traditional binding, but once you have those on your boot, in terms of just clipping in using the step-in mechanism, what you're going to do is you're going to line up that toe, stomp your heel down, and you're locked in. I just feel like overall it is a faster, smoother, more natural motion, but again, neither one of these is bad in this category. They're both going to be faster than running your traditional straps. Now in terms of exiting the binding, again, the Burton just does have a little bit more technique involved. You're gonna pop the lever, lift your heel, and you kind of twist your ankle to the outside, and that's gonna let you out of the binding. The CLEW, you just pull up on the lever and lift your heel. But definitely on the CLEW, make sure you keep your weight down on your heel before you pull that lever, because otherwise it is gonna lock up. That's a safety feature to help prevent your binding from just disengaging if that lever is to snag, or say something pulls it on the chairlift, something like that. So definitely both have their own little technique, but again, I feel like the CLEW is a more natural motion, but both are going to be super fast in terms of getting out of your binding to skate through the chairlift. In terms of getting out of the binding, I did just want to touch on the lever height of the bindings. The Burton release lever is much lower. It's all the way down at the bottom on your heel, and you will have to bend down further to pop that release. The CLEW, the release lever is very high up. It's right at the top of your high back, which does make you not have to bend down as far. So just something again to kind of aid in that speed. Or I know there's people that snowboard that do have say back injuries. They don't have to bend down as far with the CLEW. Now, how do these bindings do with shock absorption and dampening of your ride? I do think the Burton has a thicker foam pad. It's super damp, really comfortable all day, never had any foot pain, foot fatigue, and I really feel like it does give a little bit less of that chatter up into your feet. The CLEW still has a really solid amount of padding. It's just not quite as thick as the step-on, but it's still overall a very comfortable ride. You are going to maybe miss out a little bit in the dampening, but again, with the CLEW, Still going to be comfortable. I ran the most snowboard days consecutively that I ever had with the CLEW. Never had any additional foot pain, foot fatigue, or anything like that. So I think both of them overall are going to offer quite a damp, very comfortable ride. Now, in terms of flex, both of them are going to be a stiffer binding. That's going to give you excellent responsiveness. I do think the Burton has a little bit more responsiveness because you are directly attached to your snowboard with those clips versus with the straps, but the CLEW still has some absolutely insane response. I really love the way that these do ride. Plus, you do get a little bit more tweakability like you do get with those traditional straps. So if you're somebody who's working on tricks or likes to do butters, nose presses, tail presses, something like that, you have a little bit more tweakability within those tricks, which is something I do really like. Now, this is a category that honestly is not something I would have thought about straight out of the gate. Blood flow. If you are somebody who struggles with maybe poor circulation or you find your feet getting colder more often, there is a difference between the two in terms of the way your blood's allowed to flow through your feet. Where the Burtons have no straps, you don't have anything additionally compressing down on top of your feet that's going to allow that blood to flow more freely through your feet to your toes. It's going to also help keep your feet a little bit warmer. It's just one of the advantages to not running a binding with a strap. Now with the CLEW, obviously they're more closely to a traditional binding and strap setup, so that is going to be a little bit tighter on your feet. So if you are somebody that gets cold feet all the time, the Burtons are going to be the way to go, just to not have that additional compression on top of your feet. I've never personally had any cold feet issues, but it's something somebody online pointed out, and it's something I would have never thought about, which I thought was kind of cool and unique. Definitely something to consider when you're picking up a pair of bindings. Next, I want to talk about their deep snow performance. Now, with the Burton Step-On specifically, I never got mine in deep snow, so I can't fully say. I will say, me running them, I've got two buddies that run them. We've never ran into any issues. But again, we've never had them in super deep snow. I've kind of seen mixed reviews on the two. But what I can say, obviously, is if the snow is deep, you don't have any straps or any backup option to be able to get into the binding. So you would be out of luck there. Again, I've never personally ran into it, so I can't fully comment on this one. Now the CLEW, the step-in mechanism still works. I've used it in super deep snow, and it has a two-stage click system. I was still able to get, even on the deepest of days, that first click in. But you do still have traditional straps, which gives you multiple options to get in or out of your binding depending on the conditions. I do like having this option because that way I know no matter how deep the snow is, I can always just revert back, use straps like regular, and I'm still able to use my bindings on that day of snowboarding. There's never going to be a scenario where I'm stuck and can't get fully engaged into my snowboard. So in terms of versatility, I do think the CLEW has more options. For that, I have to lean more towards that in terms of deep snow performance. Another big one I do want to touch on is safety. With the Burtons, where you do have to do that specific motion to be able to disengage your foot from the binding, I have heard of stories where people have gotten their feet deeply buried in the snow and they weren't able to get out of the binding. I've also heard of people getting into a crash, hurting their leg in some way, shape, or form, and then you still have to do that motion to get your foot out. The great thing about the CLEWs is that you do still have the straps, so if your feet do get stuck or you do find yourself in a situation where you're not able to use the step-out mechanism, again, you can just pop the straps like a normal binding and get your leg free. So definitely easier to get out of, in bad scenarios where you might have your feet stuck. Now, in terms of durability, the Burton Step-Ons I ran for 2 years. I never had any issues. I have two buddies that also have them, and they haven't ran into any issues either. I have seen where some people on the newer models are having some toe clips break, but personally, out of R3 running them, nobody's ever had that happen. And again, mine worked flawlessly. They held up great. And overall, I think they would have had plenty more time left in them with no issues. The CLEW, I've only got 1 season in them so far. I still plan on running them this next season as well. They've ran perfect also. I've had no issues. Everything stayed tight, and I've been very happy. I will say I thought I was having one problem, but it turned out to be user error. I thought one of my high backs was messed up, but it was something I was doing personally. Nothing wrong with the binding, and again, they function flawlessly, especially once I learned the proper technique, and that was where, like I mentioned, you got to make sure that weight is on your heel because otherwise it's going to lock up. I thought the high back was having a problem, but it was all me, not the binding. And on that note, I do want to talk about customer service. Like I said, I haven't had any issues with the Burton, so I haven't specifically dealt with their customer service. I do know, however, that if you do have one of those clips break, there's some Burton stores that will fix them, but otherwise you do have to ship those off. Burton will fix them and send them back to you. and then you have your bindings back, but there will be a small time gap there in which you don't have the bindings. Now in terms of the CLEW, like I said, I did have to contact their customer service because I thought my binding was having an issue, and within I think 48 to 72 hours of me contacting them, I had a brand new high back sent to my house. Like I said, the issue actually wasn't the binding, it was myself, so I've never had to use it, but I will say their customer service was super speedy, super responsible, and got me what I needed. Also, with them still having the traditional straps, if something was to break, say you were on a trip or a strap broke or you needed something, pretty much any standard part you could replace, with the exception of the step-in mechanism. You'd be able to replace any of your straps, bolts, anything like that, just using any other brand's part. So I think that is one benefit, is that if something does go wrong with the CLEW, you've got a little bit more options to fix them versus a step-on. If you're not near a Burton retail store, you're going to have to send your bindings off to get that problem fixed. So, will they fall off of the lift, or will you eject from these bindings in a crash? Neither one of these bindings is going to do that. I see this comment come up all the time online. I've had plenty of crashes, been on plenty of chairlifts with these bindings over the last 3 years. Never had a doubt in my mind that they were going to fall off. I've been on the chairlift when we had like negative 20 winds blowing, and I could feel my board literally like tugging the whole chair down because the wind was so strong. The binding never came off, it never released. I never had a worry of that happening. And also, plenty of crashes have happened and they've never ejected, never come loose. Both of these are going to stay securely snug to your feet, no issues whatsoever. So which binding should you buy, the CLEW or the Burton step-on? Honestly, you can't go wrong with either option, and I would recommend both. I'm currently running the CLEW. I like the ride, I like the tweakability, the versatility. I do like still having straps and just giving me options, and overall I've just had a really great experience with these binding. I also like that I can fit any boot, which opens up a whole lot more snowboard boot options as well. But I think it all comes down to your personal needs and preference. Definitely, I think anybody should try a step-in or step-on binding, and I think they're going to be blown away by how much time you save, because it seems like so minuscule, but I think the amount of time that you will save is like, you can't put a price on that. And it doesn't seem like much, but over the course of the day, all that time you have to spend bending down, strapping up, stopping, pulling over, that does add up over the course of a whole day. So I think they are 100% worth it. It's going to save you so much time, energy, and just make your day more seamless and get you more time riding, which is what you're out there to do. I hope you found this video helpful. If you've got questions about either one of these bindings, comment down below and I'll help you out. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one soon.